There is silence in this building, unlike we've ever heard, as the Cowboys show is on the road and everybody in Mavs land is hurting, having watched Luka Doncic on his press conference in Los Angeles. But you know what? We're happy because we're just over a week away from the start of spring training. So let's talk Rangers now on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Especially at the highest level, and sometimes these guys feel like they're playing checkers when everybody else is playing chess. Hi there, and welcome into the DLLS Sports Studios. Welcome to the DLLS Rangers podcast on a very quiet day in the sports studios. John Radigan here with Jeff Wilson. We've got the Prophet back in-house here, feeling a little bit better as he recovers from being under the weather last week. Glad to have him back in-house and really glad to have you along with us, too. Don't forget, we want you to chat with us all show long, and we want you to like us and subscribe to us. Those are mandatory, and that would be great if you'd do those things. We did want to, well, first of all, it looks like the Luka meeting with the media out in Los Angeles is over, so that won't distract you anymore. If you watched it, it did depress you because it sort of makes the whole process seem even worse for Mavericks management. But here's the good side. That helps you, allows you, reminds you to celebrate Rangers management, which is doing a great job and has had a great offseason and is ready to go to spring training. And frankly, so are we.
Yeah, I leave so what's today, Tuesday? So next Tuesday, I'm going to do the show here, go home, pick up my stuff, and go to the airport, and then fly into Arizona and get rolling on the 12th with pitchers and catchers' first workout. And I used to get there like 2 or 3 days early.
Did you?
It would be me and TR out there, standing out. They wouldn't open the clubhouse for us, so we just had to grab guys ourselves. And kind of felt like it was a competitive advantage to be out there a little bit earlier. But that was before kids, I think. And so, or at least before they were mobile and going to baseball practice and softball practice on the same night. So times are changing, but the fact of the matter is that spring training is coming. It's the most important time of the year for people like you and me, John, and it's a great time for fans to build their optimism and roll into the regular season. So everybody's got a chance, during spring training.
Yeah, that's what they always say. Hope springs eternal, right? At spring training time, and every team feels like they've got a pretty good competitive chance to win, right? And to have a great year. And so who knows? Maybe they will, maybe they won't. We feel like the Rangers have a really good chance at that. But one of the things we wanted to talk about today was the psychological aspect of this game. And it came to me to discuss this when I was watching Chris Young at FanFest. He was on the stage with Mike Bassick, and I don't believe this was necessarily a question that Mike asked, but it was just sort of something that came to CY's mind, and he said, the hardest thing about being a Major League Baseball player is leaving the field one day knowing I was the worst player on that field today, and then coming back the next day and feeling I'm going to be the best player on the field today, right? And when you think about that, it's really pretty deep, and it's really pretty amazing, and it's really, I'm sure, very true. First of all, every one of these guys, Jeff, was likely the best player on the field pretty much all the way through high school.
Yeah.
Most often,
yeah.
Right?
Right.
Not always, most often. And then when they get to college, they may bump into, or into the minor leagues, they'll bump into guys who are at least equal, if not better.
Yeah.
But then you get to the major leagues and you look around and go, wow, everybody here on a given day, certainly, could be better than me.
Right. That's the thing that kind of there's no statistical measure for. And that's why, WAR, I kind of have a problem with that in the analytics. It's based on probabilities, and everybody's in a vacuum, but not everybody's in a vacuum. I mean, and it's not just like, boy, I had a crappy game last night. It can be, man, my son has 103 fever at home, and my wife's at home with two other kids, and she's really struggling, and we're from out of town. We don't have any family here to help, that kind of thing. And there's all kinds of things that can make life hard on any given day. And these guys are human beings. On the performance front, though, you talked about what CY said. I'm the worst player on the field that day. The good thing about baseball is there's usually a game the next day. For you to go out, and it's not necessarily for starting pitchers to go out and redeem themselves. They obviously have to wait for their next turn. But position players, closers, relievers can go out there and redeem themselves. And so you have to have a short memory. That I was watching a video yesterday from Nick Saban talking about how he was addressing his team. It was a long time ago because Jalen Hurts was in the crowd. But anyway, it was like, you have to be tougher than everybody else. That's how we win. So if you miss a tackle or if you fumble the ball, you can't let it affect your next play. And that's kind of like, the Rangers baseball from a bat, don't let a bad at bat carry over into the field, because, you need to stop the ball if it's hit you in the next half inning. And so it's tough, and you do it 162 times a year. And so there's definitely a mental component to it. There's fatigue that can catch up to you. And so it is difficult. And I think it's good for the sport now that they're kind of in a era where players can take a mental break, and they're recognizing that. I mean, Chris Martin, who could be the Rangers closer, did it last year. And sometimes I think in his case, it was he couldn't sleep. And so
Bad.
If you can't sleep, then your body's not performing at the highest level possible, and your performance suffers, and then you're beating yourself up, and you're like, especially on the road, it's like, I'm terrible. I'm going to go home and sit in a hotel room, and what am I going to think about all by myself? How crappy I was. So there's just so many different, like I said, things that can catch up to a player. And this isn't like the yips, like Steve Blass,
right?
25, 30 years ago, 40 years ago. Geez, Daniel Bard, who was the hot up-and-coming Red Sox reliever who had an issue and rebounded, came back with the Rockies, had a nice season, then had another situation, I think, last year where he just needed a break. Rick Ankiel, getting the yips in that playoff game, Chuck Knobloch, Steve Sachs. So there are lots of guys that deal with this, but now there's an opportunity for them to try to get it sorted out, and that's a good thing. But yeah, it's tough. It's not easy. And another thing, these guys don't show up at 6:50 for a 7:00 game.
No,
they're there 4 or 5 hours, 6 hours sometimes before a game getting ready. So it's a grind, and it's something that there's no statistical measure for. There's no way to measure what's going on in a guy's head with his body, and it is tough.
And only people who have ever worked every single day know what it's like, right? To work every single day for 6 months. And I talk to people about that all the time. They're like, oh, I could work 7/12s. No, you have no idea how hard it is to work every single day. And baseball players experience that. I mean, they get the occasional off day, but they play 162 games in 180 days. And they start spring training basically 6 weeks before that, where they're also working every day. So what you try to do as a player is you try to make your life before you go to the ballpark, or if there's a day game after you come home from the ballpark, as normal as possible. which is another reason I wanted to talk about this today, having seen this video yesterday from Corey Seager, which is just a great example of how this guy is able to keep it in perspective. Let's take a look. First I saw this and I thought, oh, is this some sort of new
Are they not in the ground at all?
exercise? Is he working the abs out there? No, that's his kid, his niece and nephew's toy. He says, this is what you do when your niece and nephew come over.
Yeah.
And again, that sort of normal life thing. And there's, I think we think of these guys too, Jeff, as heroes and as, almost robots.
Right.
And the more you can just be a human being and play on a kid's, whatever you call those, rockers or whatever, the better your mental health, I think, will be. You have to have a normal life.
Yeah. Well, and kids laughing, if you're doing it to make the kids laugh and they laugh, it's great. We had a moment the other day after, I don't know, we were coming back from, I think, Molly's volleyball game, and she can't just sit in the car silent. She has to, play games or whatever. And so we were trying to imitate various noises, and she was terrible, and it was hilarious. And we were just, me and Henry and Molly were just laughing our heads off. It's so much fun. And it's just a release, I had to, I'm sure 1,000 things on my mind, but not at that moment. And so when these guys are able to do that, I know it's the off season, but still Corey Seager's not just sitting around home.
No,
he's working and every day to get where he needs to be, and it's different, and he's regimented to it, but it's okay to take a break. But yeah, these guys are humans.
Yeah.
They have babies. Their kids get sick. They, Josh Young got in a car wreck a couple springs ago. These things happen to them. They're not I can't think of it.
Immune in any way.
Yeah,
they're not immune in any way to all the same things that we go through. And then you add on top of that, and I think this is the final element, and I think, having just shown Corey Seager, I think Marcus Semien has done this well too. I don't know, I think we've seen it from Jacob deGrom, but maybe not fully yet. But to deal with the weight of, right, the huge contracts, Seager foremost among them, and we've seen plenty of players who get that huge contract and they spend a year trying so hard to live up to that contract that they can't be who they are.
Yeah, well, his first year was not great.
Not great. That's right.
Before, it was before the shift was banned and all that. But he had come from a team he'd never not been in the postseason, and all of a sudden he's the last day of the season rolls around and he'd had a subpar year. At least he was healthy, but he was going home for the first time. And he's in a new setting. He's like, I'm sure he was like, felt the weight of the contract, but also was like, geez,
this is no fun.
I'm not in LA anymore,
Yeah.
And then one last thing before we hit our ad break is that, Adolis Garcia last year when he slumped, that was a mental thing, and Bruce Bochy talked about it numerous times. He's so hard on himself, he gets down on himself, and he can't get out of it. That's something, a guy who was just on top of the world, really, a few months, 6 months prior, 7 months prior, as the hero of the ALCS and won a World Series. Yeah, he got hurt in there, and then all of a sudden he had the little contract issue, goes into spring training, tired and not ready to go, has a great April, and then all of a sudden it goes away. And he had trouble dealing with that. That's management's belief. That's Bruce Bochy, a guy who's been around the game and seen a lot of things. That's his belief. So again, figuring that out, staying sharp, that's a huge component for these guys.
Yep, no doubt about it. And that's one of the things they're constantly working on. The Rangers over the years have had mental health coaches, one over the years who's traveled with the team even. So it happens, and usually, hopefully, there will always be someone there to help and someone there to pick you up. Often that's actually just other veterans who have been through the same thing previously. All right, so a Major League Baseball umpire was fired yesterday, and there's some real shady stuff around that firing. So we'll talk about that and betting in baseball, on baseball, next on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
All right, you guys have heard this before. It's my favorite app, the Sleeper app. Use the code DLLS Rangers, and Sleeper will match up to $100 your first deposit. Sleeper daily picks. That's what I use it for. I already went in there. I saw I was doing this ad today. Went in there and did some picks for tonight. You can adjust things. You can really make it as advantageous to you, but the player still has to go out and perform. The other night, I had Shea Gilgeous-Alexander. I lowered his point total to 30. He finished with 29 because they were blowing out their team and you play in the fourth quarter. So those are little things. It is still there's no guarantee, but it is fun. It makes everything more fun when you're watching a game and following sports that night. So again, Sleeper app, DLLS Rangers, $100 first match deposit.
Does it make you hate Shea?
No.
Okay, good.
The coach,
good.
yes, but not Shea.
He's a good dude. He's a good dude. Yeah. So anyway, don't forget about Saturday Neon too. A couple of college buddies got together and thought, you know what? Let's start this company where we make neon signs. We just have to get accredited with all of the colleges. They haven't gotten accredited with all of them yet. They're working on that, I'm certain. But they've got about 50, and it's a lot of the big boys that you've heard of. We're still working on a couple of the local ones. We'd like to see them get those on board, including TCU and SMU. But eventually, I think they'll have more. And look, if you wanted to from Saturday Neon, you could go there and get something custom made in sort of any name you want, any nickname you want, any team you want. They would do that for you too. It's cool neon. It's LED. It's not the old-fashioned gas stuff. And it brightens up your room, especially, I think, your man cave. So go to SaturdayNeon.com. Use the code DLLS for 10% off. I was shocked yesterday, Jeff. I think it came down yesterday when we saw a Major League Baseball umpire. Mm-hmm. First, I think we saw rumblings that there was some, they were looking at it. And then, boom, fired by Major League Baseball. Now, there's so many things about gambling that go literally all the way back to the Black Sox scandal and Shoeless Joe Jackson and all of that, if you're familiar with that. And there was, there were allegations that the 1919 White Sox threw the World Series so that they could recoup money from bettors, right? And anyway, so baseball thus has always been super sensitive about betting. See Pete Rose, who did bet. I mean, he bet on baseball, and the punishment lasted the rest of his life because he has not been allowed to be inducted into the Hall of Fame because there was a banishment. He got banned from baseball. So betting has always been a big thing. I remember that there were times when they wouldn't put phones down near the club or near the dugout because they were afraid that baseball players would go in there and call a bookie and place a bet. So, it's a sensitive topic. It has been for, since the days of Kennesaw Mountain Landis, but it is, I guess, rearing its head right now. And, it begs the question about the umpire in question, Pat Hoberg. Like, dude, what are you thinking?
Yeah. Well, I think it's important to point out that the MLB investigation found that Pat Hoberg did not bet on any games. He was linked to an account with a friend. I guess they shared an account, and the friend was betting on baseball. Pat Hoberg, really good umpire, first of all.
Yes.
Really good umpire. Yeah. And he can appeal the suspension in a year's time, I think, or 2 years' time. But it's, this is rule 21, for the players, no gambling. And it's one that they know from the very first day they signed their professional, contracts. I mean, it's a big one. And, you talk to guys in the game, and they're like, ask them, should Pete Rose be in the Hall of Fame? No, because of Rule 21. It's an old rule. And gambling really came to the forefront again last year, first with the Ohtani interpreter. Sure. And then there was another scandal. There's a player named Tucupita Marcano who was with the Pirates, who is banned for life because he was gambling on games. There are some minor leaguers who were gambling on games, and they were not. They might have been suspended for life. I don't recall, but and then Pete Rose dying, it brought it all back to the forefront. Just don't do it. And I know that there's access, and and the shadiest thing is that MLB is now making money from these apps, and they have an association with MGM and in Las Vegas, and they'll have GM meetings and even winter meetings in Las Vegas. And
they're about to have a team
right
in Las Vegas.
Right. So I mean, it's definitely a fine line that MLB is walking, and I don't know that it kind of hypocritical maybe, but a rule's a rule, and this is a big one, and you just don't violate it. And as far as Hoberg is concerned, he absolutely could have affected the outcome of games. Who's the old ref, the NBA ref? Tim something McConaughey or something
wrote the
like
book
that,
and all that. Yeah,
and he got busted, and just don't do it.
No, and that's the thing, and it it doesn't. I don't know if Hoberg had a real problem, a quote unquote. They always put that on any of the gambling sites. If you feel you have a gambling problem, please contact blah, 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 right?
Yeah.
And I don't know if he had that sort of addiction to gambling, but he and his buddy over a 10-year period-ish, $700,000.
Yeah.
$700,000 is a lot of money to be gambling.
Right.
And there was a stretch in there where Hoberg bet, the account bet $444,000 and lost about $22,000. I suppose in the betting world, that's not terrible, right? But that's a lot. You started with 44,000, and you end up with 22,000 basically.
Yeah, and
440. Yeah,
and again, going back to Hoberg, a lot of the reason he got punished was because he impeded the investigation by deleting some communication. I don't know if it was text message or emails or both, but it's just something that's baseball's not going to mess around with. You don't mess around with the integrity of the game. And I know another hypocritical thing, and this goes back to my Hall of Fame voting stance with the steroids. Baseball for many, many years made a ton of money on steroids. I mean, the Mark McGwire, Sammy Sosa home run case,
which basically resurrected a game.
It helped breathe life into the game.
Canceled the World Series the year before. Yeah.
So I mean, there's all kinds of things that baseball has profited by, and so when I again vote for Hall of Famers, if they never tested positive before the testing was implemented, they're clean. I mean, they may be not clean, but in my mind, baseball allowed them to do this and profited from it. So they get my vote. If they are suspended afterwards, after everything was enforced, Alex Rodriguez, Manny Ramirez, boom, no, you don't get my vote. That's just the way it is. So in any event, this gambling thing. I mean, Pete Rose never made it to the ballot. He got suspended before he had reached 5 years, so it never became an issue. But lifetime ban, man, don't mess around with it.
No, it's not worth messing around with, because again, the reality is as sort of enticing as it might be to place these bets, the reason those casinos are so nice, right, is that the house doesn't lose very often. The gambling guys don't lose very often. You're the one who will lose. And I suppose every once in a while there's that guy, who makes a great living because he's so good at gambling. But, Randy Galloway, who also used to work over at the Star-Telegram with you guys, Jeff, Galloway always used to say, I never bet on two-legged animals, right? He'd bet the horses, but he wouldn't bet on two-legged animals because there's just, again, and that gets back to the whole psychology discussion that we had in the first segment. There's just so much at play. Again, human beings playing a game here.
Yeah. Like I've always heard that the most crooked sport is highlight.
Yeah.
Not that you can go on to, maybe you can go on to a website and bet highlight, but I've heard that that's just rife with corruption and foul doing and, fixing the score. You find point shaving scandals in college. I mean, that was one of the underlying stories in Goodfellas, the movie Goodfellas. That was one of their big heists with the Boston College players. And, it just, you wonder. And a lot of times on these games, you see the line. It's like, how did that game not hit? You know, and you can go back and like, how does this guy who shoots 90% from the free throw line only shoot 60%?
Yeah.
Something like that. It just there's always going to be questions, but as long as it's a rule, just don't do it. I don't care what the association is. You can't justify it. Baseball and NFL players have been suspended. I mean, they can track your damn location on these betting apps. Just don't do it. There's no way to deny it. No matter how hypocritical it looks, you don't want that because it's going to tarnish your reputation. Could get you suspended from. I mean, this Marcano player for the Pirates was young. He had millions of dollars in his future, and now it's gone. So, it's a costly mistake.
It is, and I think to your point early in the discussion here, Major League Baseball has a delicate PR chord to strike here because they have continually begun to embrace the whole idea of legalized gambling, right? By putting a team in 2028 in Las Vegas, at least we think that's still happening, and by allowing the MGMs of the world to be major sponsors, by having meetings in Las Vegas, right? There is sort of the height of hypocrisy, and I believe 100%. That they've still got something to deal with from an organizational standpoint on that front.
I agree, but as long as they're writing checks and they aren't bouncing and they aren't going to bounce, MLB is going to cash them. So that's kind of that's where you go.
Yeah, and that's just the reality. It doesn't mean, right, just because they're hypocritical, you as a player can act on these impulses, I guess there. I've never been much of a gambler, but I do have some addiction in my family. So I understand, having watched them, alcoholics in my family, like the impulse and the inability to control yourself. But it is hard for me to imagine, right, that like the impulse of gambling is that strong.
Yeah, but it is. I mean, I used to work with a guy who was addicted to gambling, and the craziest story I heard him say is that one time he and his friends played Monopoly for real money.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So that kind of puts a different yikes.
Holy moly! You better get Boardwalk, brother. You better in Park Place both.
Yeah.
And then start putting hotels on them. Holy moly!
Yep.
Yeah, that would be ridiculous. So anyway, a bit of a black eye, if you will, but the league has swiftly dealt with it, and we'll see what else comes from that. Coming up next, let's talk a little bit more about what's going on with TV. We've seen a little bit more clarity. There's probably some things we didn't get to that we can discuss further too. It's next on the DLLS Rangers podcast. Is it me first? Yes, it is.
It is.
With the Rugged Road sitting right next to me here. This Rugged Road cooler is fantastic. Looks just like the one you see on your screen. It's got great hardware on it. It appears to be like it's not going to rust. It's a lot of plastic, but it's that really sturdy, solid plastic. And amazingly, and maybe not so much, it's so lightweight, probably in part because of the plastic. But it's really easy to carry this thing, and it also floats. It's just so well designed. The inside has compartments to where you don't have to keep the things you want cold, but you don't want wet. With those that you do, you don't mind if your sodas or your beers are in there when the ice begins to melt, because it's okay. But you don't want your potato salad in there doing the same thing. So that's not quite as okay. So anyway, you've got those. Plus, the ice isn't going to melt for 7 days. RuggedRoad.com. Use the code DLLS and get your 10% discount.
You know what time it is, John?
Game time.
There you go. You do it much better than me. lot more enthusiasm. So anyway, Game Time, another very handy app who is partnered with DLLS and ALLCITY. Use the code DLLS to get $20 off your first purchase. I've been looking at the Super Bowl. I looked, though, at Mavs games, and the first home game back is Saturday afternoon against the Rockets. So if you want to go there and boo and scream and flip off people, whatever you want to do, you can do it for as little as $38 up in the rafters, or if you want a better seat where they're going to hear you for sure, $2,000 for a courtside seat I saw. So anyway, this is a great app. You can see your seat view, all that stuff, all in pricing. Game Time, download it, $20 off your first purchase with the code DLLS.
And by the way, Anthony Davis met with the media this morning too, and I think they're in Philadelphia.
Correct.
And so there was some media, of course, local media there to chat with him. And I hope like heck none of the Mavs fans who are on this chat will go there and boo Anthony Davis.
Yeah, it's
or
not his
Maxi
fault.
Christie. It's not their fault. They had no idea this was coming either.
Right.
And all they're doing is now working for the team that employs them. And so anyway, you can. And again, if you pay $2,000, right? If you go on the Game Time app and get those seats for $2,000, I suppose you can do whatever you want. But I would discourage booing those guys. Those guys are just,
they only work here.
They're working stiffs.
Yeah.
I mean, they're not really.
They're not.
They're working stiffs that make millions, but they're working stiffs, right? This is not on them. It's not like this one. And sometimes these things are orchestrated. This one was not at all, not by the players. So anyway, I hope you don't do that. Some things I noticed about the TV contract, first of all, that I wanted to bring out. And one of them, really both of them that we start with, are good news. Prophet, do we have the spring training TV schedule? And you probably don't need to. Oh, there they both are. Okay, so the spring training one on your right is illustrative in the fact that there are more games than Fox or Bally ever did.
Yeah,
during spring training, right?
Yeah.
All the the ones that are in red and blue there are the ones that are on TV, and the red ones are the free ones. You could literally get those with rabbit ears on channel 33. So you're going to have 4 opportunities during spring training to watch the Rangers play, and then another 4. You have 8 total, but you have 4 for free, right? And then you have 4 more on one of the other services that will allow you to get the Rangers Sports Network. And that said, there will be other chances. Some of those Cincinnati games, for example, up there, they easily could be on what was Bally, the FanDuel Main Street, from Ohio, right? So often those kinds of things happen. And the truth is, I don't know. Yeah, I better not say that. But they'd be on other things. There'd be places to pick those games up. Those Angels games, that late Angels game you see, could easily be on their app, and locally they could pick up that feed. So those are some options. But it's cool. 8 games to see during spring training is way more. Even if that's all you get, that's way more than normal.
Yeah, I wonder if it's not to work out the kinks, I think, for the production crew, because it's all guys who've been in the business and know how to do it. I think it's going to help fans realize, oh, hey, these are our options. Oh, hey, there's my game on DirecTV, channel 677, I think is what it's going to be. There it is. Or, somebody who's wondering what it's going to look like on free TV. Well, there's 4 opportunities for you to check it out and see if that's enough. But the free games, it's going to be 14 or 15 on home Fridays, and then but the Victory app. See in the chat there are a couple guys who have all about Sports Zone already bought it. Galaga Champ likes the price, so it sounds like Victory is going to be a real good option for baseball fans. And $100.
Yeah. It's 62 cents a game.
Right.
That's what when we had Jim Cochran when he was there. Couldn't remember if it was Dave or Jim, but Jim Cochran said 62 cents a game. I mean, absolutely nothing if you're a Rangers fan. Right now, on that big schedule, it shows that there are 146 games on the RSN, the Rangers Sports Network. And the reality is there probably won't be that many. There are 15, as Jeff mentioned, that are listed right now as the Friday home games on CW33. So technically, those are also on RSN. So then basically now you're looking at 160 games on RSN.
Yeah.
Also won't happen. Right now there's only 2 national games selected. Both of them are ESPN games. I know one's July 6th. I saw another one just came down yesterday.
Oh, okay. I missed that one.
Yeah, I forgot the date, but there's another Rangers game that has been selected already to be a national game. There will be more.
Right.
Apple TV gets some Friday exclusives. There's going to be some Fox Sports exclusives, the big Fox. There's going to be FS1 that picks up some games. So they'll lose more. But as of right now, RSN is essentially scheduled to produce 160 games. Am I right about this, Skipper? Oh, my goodness. Man. So you're going to definitely want to watch our Mavs show later today. There is emergency pod going on right now. So if we lose you to that, we're not going to be that upset. We appreciate you hanging out with us. Plus, we got more TV stuff to talk about. So hang for a few more minutes. But the Mavs have just made another trade.
Well, let's see here.
Do you see it?
They acquire Caleb Martin in exchange for Quentin Grimes. Okay.
Yeah.
Is that a big deal? I don't know. Who the hell is Caleb Martin?
Yeah, that seems like a good one. Prophet, any insight there? No?
Caleb,
not really.
Well, Caleb Martin plays for the Phillies, or not the Phillies, for the 76ers. How could I miss that one? Dr. J was like my first favorite player ever.
Yeah.
All right. He's averaging 9.1 points, 4.4 rebounds, 2.3 assists.
And when he gets to the arena, they're going to say, Caleb, you got
other locker room,
you
pal.
got to go to the other locker room.
So traded Sixers to trade Caleb Martin to Mavs for Quentin Grimes and a second-round pick. Well, second-round pick, he must be, I don't know.
Caleb. You go, Caleb.
Anyway, so there you go.
Didn't that happen? Who'd that happen with the Rangers?
It definitely happened to Jake Diekman.
Jake.
The 2018 trade deadline.
Yeah. With Kansas City?
No, with Arizona. The Rangers were in Arizona, and the deadline was there. It was hot, as you might imagine, because it was July 31st. But yeah, he just went across the other side of the club, other side of the ballpark, and all of a sudden he's in another uniform. That was also when Keone Kella was traded to the Pirates, and coincidentally, the crime rate went down here in DFW. So, anyway, that tells you my thoughts on Keone Kella.
But opposite end of that spectrum was Jake Diekman.
Yeah,
that's a good dude.
It's a good dude. He kind of got emotional during the press conference, and because he'd been through so much, really, with since coming to the Rangers. He had Crohn's disease, and he had that massive surgery, and the Rangers stood by him throughout that whole process. Changed his life. I think he had a kid when he was here. So good dude. You're right, and he's a free agent, and he's pretty darn good against lefties.
Yeah, was it last year? No, I think it was the year before. He was in Tampa. Where was he last year?
I think he was in Tampa.
Was
last
he in Tampa
year?
last
he
year
in
too?
Tampa last year.
I saw him in Tampa 2 years ago, and it was good. Good to catch up with him. But Jake Diekman's.
He was not in Tampa last year.
He was almost a throw-in, really.
Yeah,
in the Cole Hamels trade, but he became a lot more than a throw-in.
Right, and he ended up staying longer than Cole Hamels.
That's right. Yeah,
though maybe not by more than a week or so. But anyway, good guy, and we are off track. But Caleb Martin, now a member of the Dallas Mavericks, went to Nevada.
So and no more Quentin Grimes. And so anyway, that the TV thing that you just brought up before we got to that, Jeff, about the production crew not necessarily needing the time. And actually the truth is they do, because it's just different, right? They're going to try to do some things differently. and they're going to try to implement some things that haven't been implemented before. And so the more reps you get at doing something like that, the better you'll feel about when you do it. But then the other thing that was just honestly, it was always amazing to me. So I would do Rangers games back in the day, all the way through October. And then if they didn't, or the beginning of October even, or late September, even if they didn't make the playoffs, right away in fairly early October, I would move from where I was working at the ballpark to right over here at the American Airlines Center. And I'd get on the air that night and I'd have no audio. I'm like, and it was the same people. I mean, just like me, the same people left the trucks in Arlington and came to the trucks in Dallas. And we, on our first Stars show, or back, now in late March, when we go to our first Rangers show, how can we not have audio? But it's just, you have to sort of refamiliarize yourself and reacquaint yourself with everything. So there's a process involved there. And that's part of the thing. But what I think is really cool is just that you can hunker down in front of the TV and watch baseball. I always thought, honestly, when we were at Fox and Bally, that we should do more spring training games. I mean, they're just so much fun. And I get it. I mean, they're a pain. They are a huge pain for the announce crew because they'll go wholesale changes after you make out this whole lineup card and then all of a sudden, everybody changes between innings, and you've got to change every line in your book.
It gets messy out there. And, the regulars do not play 9 innings anymore in spring training.
Yeah.
A few select teams, they'll have their infielders try to go 9. Some will get there, some won't. But I guess it's kind of like a marathon. You get your training to a certain point, and you just let the last 4 or 5 miles kick in. Well, you just let the last couple innings kick in on opening day. But it is a mess to follow, especially for people who might be doing the graphics, for Dave and whoever's in the booth that day. I don't know why they should keep score anyway in those games, but if you're watching, all right, so you watch 5 or 6 innings and 7 maybe, and the starting pitcher's gone after 4 or 5 at that point in spring training, and the relievers start coming in. The guys who the regulars who play that day. The regulars don't play every day either. They're on schedules, and if it's a road game, it's a pretty light crew that makes the trip. But you get to see minor leaguers who might be playing that day, just in case, players, as they call them, jicks. Guys who weren't invited to big league camp, but who could conceivably be in camp next year, or maybe even, possibly have an outside chance of making the roster at some point in the season. You'll see those guys, and they get exposed then to, usually some pretty good relievers. Sure. You'll see, like last year is a big deal when Sebastian Walcott got in these games, and I always remember, Jerks and Profar when he was young and before he got invited to camp playing those games. So it's always good to catch up with the farm system too and see what these guys look like and put a face with the name. And but yeah, those spring games, especially early on, it's for the regulars, it's 2-3 at bats tops, and they're out. They're out by the 3rd inning. So, and starting pitchers may go 2. The ones who have been throwing more bullpens in the off season, but it's usually 1 inning or 25 pitches.
It's weird when you talk about this. When we talk about this, I as we talk that through, I feel warmth on my face like sun, because what we do, I think you do too. We leave the press box once the regulars have left, because we got to go interview them before they leave for the day. But then we're back. Usually, I'd just not go back to the press box, sit in the stands, watch the rest of the game, and soak up that sun. And that's part of the fun, too, of spring training games. So make sure, we've said it a million times, make sure, if you can, you go to spring training this year or sometime soon. More coming as we clean this thing up. It's our batting cleanup segment, and we've got, as always, lots to talk about. Don't forget, it's Tuesday, too. That's coming next. DLLS Rangers podcast. We're fraught with merch today after we had a day with none or little. Actually, yesterday we
couldn't see it yesterday.
And yesterday we dressed the same.
That's right.
which was like we were twinsies. And that was
not orchestrated.
Yeah, no, it was not an orchestra. We weren't even in the same building together. It would have been, it would have been either cute or nauseating, actually, if we were sitting here together.
Showing our team spirit.
Yeah, I suppose. But in any event, we love the merch, and we want you to get some of it. And as we found out yesterday from the Prophet, there was a Luka shirt that's going to be put on sale. I actually think I might buy one.
Oh,
you know,
yeah.
I think that might be something I want to avail myself to. Thanks for the memories, sort of a thing. Not that Luka gets anything out of it, but our company does, and I like that. We love the merch. We hope you do too. Go out and buy some, and keep an eye for all the new stuff that we've got coming once baseball season comes. Store.allcitynetwork.com.
Yeah, I'm gonna go out on a limb and say that our first special shirt will be Wyatt Langford.
I think so.
Okay.
Yeah, but I don't think Jake Berger will be far behind.
Yeah, I think you're right. Okay, so you get a free shirt when you become a diehard at AllCity, AllDLLS.com. Look, we're doing it for $48 right now. It's an introductory offer, and if you're having the itch for ball, I'm going to be out there in a week writing stories that will be behind the paywall. And right now, Tim Cato is probably getting ready to write another trade story. And,
Caleb Martin
and our Cowboys crew is in New Orleans. No, the Cowboys aren't in the Super Bowl, obviously, but there's always news from the Super Bowl with every team. So become a diehard today. www.alldls.com.
Very wise choice to do that. So speaking of Jake Berger, which we did a few minutes ago, there is a promo out, as they always do with MLB 25, the show, the big video game, and they put out a big promotional video to promote it, obviously, as the name promo would imply. And in that long video, in the first 1 minute and 16 seconds of that video, you see plays by Corey Seager, Marcus Semien, and Jake Berger.
Hey-o.
How about that?
Right, that's
I
good.
mean, and you'd think, maybe Jacob deGrom is in there at that point, whatever. But Jake Berger, MLB, thinks so highly of. And again, the power that this guy has displayed over the years, over the couple of years. I mean, he's not around for very long, but, it's enticing, right? With the old commercial, chicks dig the long ball,
That's right.
know? So,
well, he's going to be in there at first base, and first basemen get a lot of camera time, a lot of putouts. They lead the team in putouts, it seems like. So Jake Berger will be a big part of this team. My son on Sunday morning fired up NBA 2K, and Luke had already been traded on NBA.
Seriously?
Yeah, my son played a Lakers-Mavs game, and Luke was already. So whoever does that, PlayStation was already way ahead of the game. They'd already switched rosters. Anthony Davis was on the Mavs roster. So anyway, pretty interesting those games. And of course, I fully support my son playing them. It's how he learns a lot about players and who they play for and past players. Like I'll come upstairs and he's opening the packs that they have on there, and it's like, hey, Dad, who's Roberto Clemente, Greg Maddux, Frank Robinson, and somebody else. Which player should I keep?
Oh,
I'm like,
boy.
Okay,
yeah.
well,
yeah.
Anyway, so it's fun stuff, but there's BC flexing his Lakers muscles instead of his Dodgers muscles.
Oh, of course, yeah.
All right, BC.
Yeah, we
got
you.
Whatever.
We got you.
I'm with you, pal.
BC.
And right above him, while we're speaking of a live podcast, emergency podcast for the Mavs, what are we going to do at DLLS before, during, or after games? Last year, we launched with only 5 weeks left in the season, and we figured that we would do a pre and post game show on the final day of a series. So a lot of those are almost always on Sunday.
Yeah, every Sunday we'll have a pre and post game show, basically.
Right. Yeah. We're not going to do 162 unless they give us raises. threaten us to,
or if
threaten our
the
job
Rangers
safety, but-
give us a reason,
right
right?
now, now down the stretch, if it's clinch scenarios for sure, if these are big games, maybe if there's an Astro series that has a lot of weight to it, we could do that. I think there's a lot of things that it's a liquid situation, but right now I think that's the plan. Where and then maybe opening day, I think.
Yeah, we're hoping to do pre and
warrant
post for that, and
that.
and like Jeff said, maybe some special games along the way. If this, I don't know if this year's going to have a Hall of Fame induction. I haven't seen anything about that yet, so I don't think so. But
Not that's usually announced a little later.
Okay. So, or if there's somebody's number, I don't think there's a number up for retirement, but if there was, that type of thing, even if it wasn't on a getaway day, we might do a pre and post game show. The reality is, though, getaway day, you can pretty much count on us, doing a pre and post game, usually both of those during the day, typically on, let's say, a Wednesday, and then Sunday, most of them during the day as well. So
yeah, I mean,
we'll be working day side Wednesdays and Sundays, but again, there's some getaway days that are Thursday too.
Right. So that's our plan right now, and again, could change, but we feel pretty good about that.
And
one.
in that same context, we'll basically have off the days that the Rangers are off. And we'll be on, if we're not doing a pre and post game, we're still on. I think it's going to be around 1 or 2 at the latest. 1 probably.
1, because that still gets me to the ballpark in time for Clubhouse to open for home games. Maybe it changes when I'm not traveling, which right now I really haven't discussed with the big guy what we're going to travel. But typically I like to travel. If they're on the road for the trade deadline, which they are this year, at the end of the season, the last series, or the last road trip, the last series this year is at Cleveland. So
odd.
Yeah, a little odd. Yeah. The Houston series will be, I can likely just hop down the highway there and cover those pretty easily. But, if it's a big series, then maybe, you'll see me there, like last year, Seattle, when DeGrom
came back. Yeah,
Rocker made his MLB debut, and then DeGrom pitched. We flew out for those games. So lots of options and opportunities out there.
Yeah. All right. So we had a long talk about spring training. Let's take a look at the MLB has released the picture of the hats that each team will wear during spring training. And again, we're hat people. Mostly Jeff. I love hats, even though my head's too big to wear them. But that's not because I'm like so vain.
Yeah,
it's just I'm born with a big head. But look at there's the powder blue Rangers cap, which I think they had last year too, right, Jeff?
Yeah, but it didn't have a red bill last year.
I might have. I like this one better if it did.
I don't really. Last year, everything sucked uniform wise last spring, and it was when MLB rolled out the new uniforms with the smaller letters and the sweaty stuff, and then the pants were kind of see through.
Yeah.
And so photo day was kind of interesting for a couple guys.
Dicey. Yeah.
But anyway, you can live with this hat. This is a pretty nice.
Yeah, I'm not mad at that hat. I'm not at all. I like that Philadelphia Phillies hat with the Liberty Bell on it.
That's cool.
That's pretty sweet. So you got that's the Braves upper left. What's right next to it?
That looks like the Diamondbacks, maybe. It looks like a forked tongue sticking out of the baseball and maybe a snake above it.
I like that one. Whatever it is.
Yeah.
Whatever it is.
And it looks like the Cubs is a bear.
Like that.
It's kind of cool.
Yeah.
The Blue Jays one looks kind of lame, just the regular hat with a light blue bill.
Yeah. And I'm not fond of that Yankees hat. Pinstripes are cool on the uniform.
No,
not
this
on the hat.
This is the Yankees. Don't mess around with that.
Yeah, I don't like that on the hat. But anyway,
whatever.
There's a look at them, and they'll, no doubt. I mean, we're helping them. We didn't they give us nothing for it, but we probably just helped them sell a few, which is not our intent on showing them. But
I don't know if we sold any Yankees hats there, John.
Well, that's a good point. Good. Yeah, we probably did because Yankees fans are just so, Yankees fans, they'll be like, I'll buy one anyway. Well, I don't care what Radigan says, so it's fine. Go ahead. Spend your hard-earned money on a bad-looking hat. I don't care. All right. We talked yesterday about how the Twins hadn't done anything, and now they have.
Yeah, Danny Coulombe, who Uncle Ted's not in the chat today, but that was Uncle Ted's guy.
Yeah.
Left-handed reliever. He had a real nice season last year, but it wasn't a full season. But the Twins have a pretty good bullpen. They already had a pretty good bullpen, and so they've added to it. The Yankees signed, while we've been on the show, when I was trying to find information on this guy that the Mavericks
Caleb Martin. Yeah,
of course.
Our favorite.
How could I forget?
Yeah, Caleb.
The Yankees signed another lefty, Tim Hill, who I think pitched for him last year. He's been around the East. Anyway, kind of a Padres guy too. Anyway, wonky delivery from the left side. He signed with the Yankees. So there's been a Tuesday morning run on left-handed relievers, and the Rangers already have Robert Garcia and Hobie Milner.
Yeah.
But they also have Jake Latz, who had a pretty good little year last year as a rookie, and then Walt Pennington, who I've of course always have an affinity for, coming from Colorado, and the Colorado School of Mines, which is right down the street from one of my two boyhood homes. So good guy, and so that's 4 lefties. Cody Bradford ends with the bullpen, which I just have a good feeling about him starting. Anyway, the Rangers have a nice little collection of lefties. Robbie Ahlstrom, who's been invited to camp on a non-roster deal, they got him in, just an internal invite. They got him in the Jose Trevino trade with the Yankees.
Jose now with the Reds, remember?
Right.
Yeah.
So there's some options from the left side, those port siders, as Steve Busby used to call them.
Yeah, and you know what? I think that's a really good option. So often we hear about a bullpen. Yeah, there's no lefties down there. I mean, it's not necessarily a most teams don't have a plethora of them. I think this is, and we've seen it with the Rangers bullpen often. Not often, but a lot that we've seen. No lefties or just 1 or 2 lefties. And are you sure you want to trust him lefties? So.
Yeah.
I like the composition of it. Actually, where the dearth of left-handers is actually in that starting rotation. You'd love to be able to break up the right-handers a little bit more, I think.
I think so, too. I agree with that. Natalie, she asked us earlier. I saw it. Do you think Taveras, Leote, will be traded at some point in the next year or two? This is a pretty big year for him. I think he becomes a non-tender candidate after this year if he doesn't have a good year. And there has been some interest in him. But Chris Young and Bruce Bochy still think there's another level. There's some debate about that in other circles in the camp, the Rangers team, and then the front office and scouting departments. But he looks the part, and he had a nice season 2 years ago. And if there's another level there, then I think the Rangers want to be the ones who strike on it. But again, if this year doesn't work out, I think next year he may not be traded. He just may be non-tendered because he's going to make 4.5. Do you want to pay that guy upwards of 6 next year?
Yeah, but the thing is, and you'd hate this, and it happens to every team. It happens a lot, but you just hate to see him become Cole Reagans, right?
Yeah.
Which again. We love to see what happened to Cole Reagans.
Oh, for sure.
And it'd be great if it would have happened here. But you kind of look at that and go, this dude's a Cy Young. He's in the Cy Young conversation.
Yeah, well, there's your lefty starter.
Yeah,
but
good point.
Do the Rangers win the World Series without Aroldis Chapman?
Who knows? We can't. We'll never know. What we do know is they did win it with him. So that was good news. That was fun. We've got so much to talk about throughout the course of this week. We still believe we've got a special surprise for you on Thursday. Hopefully, we'll be able to give you the details of that tomorrow. But still, mark it on your calendar. You don't want to miss Thursday's show.
It'll be either at 11 or noon.
Yeah, could be an hour earlier because the magnitude of this surprise. So we thank you for watching us today. What's that? Oh, thank you. Tony Tuesday. Forgot about it. It's Tony Tuesday. There it is. Thank you, Prophet. Smile often, laugh a lot, and pray without ceasing. The joy of the Lord is your strength. Nothing can separate you from his love. Keep him in all things and him in glory. We have victory in Jesus. Win your day. Tony Tuesdays. Fantastic. Great way to end it. You can go watch the Mavs now and learn everything you need to know about Caleb Martin. Thanks for joining us on the DLLS Rangers podcast.
We all silly like the mayor.